So, Rick, why don't you give us one of your sale tips of the week?
Well, I gave you the master list, and I'm glad you revised the last one. I think it's more appropriate. But you can't deny that it didn't get people's attention when I would bring it up. Okay, it'd be like, did he just say what I thought? Anyway, so it was. These are some simple truths that have been around the car industry and sales industry as a whole for decades. Okay, and nothing that I've put forth here is, with the exception of one, and I'm going to give you that one right now, is mine. All these are, I mean, there's quotes in here from Henry Ford and from Albert Einstein and W.L. Bateman and a few others, okay, and so forth. But
Wasn't the
about
one
35 years, what?
Wasn't the famous one from Einstein? Mein Gott, my hair is unmanageable today.
It should have been.
I think that was the Einstein.
It should have been. Actually, Bateman, I think, prompted Einstein, because Bateman was back in the mid 1800s, but Bateman's quote, and it's in here, is if you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you're going to keep getting the same thing you've always gotten. Later, Einstein, Einstein basically, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome or result is insanity, right? Okay.
The definition of insanity.
That's it.
Yeah.
So mine that I'm going to put out there today is the word in the acronym POWER. Persistence outweighs every resistance. In sales, if you are going to give up and let the customer dictate to you the terms, conditions, everything and so forth, and you can't take control of that sales process, you're going to lose. Okay. You're going to lose. I used to teach my sales guys, what's stronger, water or granite? Well, everybody always says granite. So, if you let water drip on granite long enough, it'll tear it to pieces. Okay. It's the persistency that makes the difference. So the main thing is to stay on point, to stay on the 10-step road to the sale, follow it completely, consistently, every time, and more times than not, you'll come out, okay, on the upside of that, being able to sell that unit to that customer and making a lifelong friend. And that's what it's all about, So one last thing I used to teach my sales guys, I mean, back in the day, and with them, you were in it at the same time I was at that point. I mean, if you were here from Mars and you didn't know nothing and you got a job in the car business and you were sending back a message to the mom and dad back on planet Mars and said, hey, I got this great job in the car business. I talked to 10 people and I make one sale. Okay, I got about a 10% closing ratio and so forth. And here's the best part. I'll probably never get a referral out of them, and they won't remember me in 2 or 3 years when it's ready for them to buy again and so forth. So every month I'm starting off from zilch, and this is the job I've chosen. And it's just like, how many people in retrospect would look at those scenarios and say, hey, that's a great field to be in. Okay. So unless you changed and didn't just be, as we all knew, the majority of salespeople in the industry, which were nothing but sitting around waiting for the next up to walk in the door. If you didn't do something as a paradigm change to shuffle that deck and make that work into your favor and provide better quality service and salesmanship to that customer, well, that was pretty much your life. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, you might be selling 12 cars a month or 13. And maybe 10 years after that, you might be selling 15, but it was a slow or no growth scenario.
And I remember
these truths are designed to help you. That's all it is.
It was called a numbers game.
That's it. Or lack thereof. That's right.
And the salespeople that didn't really make it took that to mean, well, I just got to talk to enough people and I'll sell some cars. But what the smart, sharp salespeople knew is that the numbers game, you can adjust the numbers anywhere. I mean, sure, if the equation is X equals 1, well, then you're only going to sell one car, or X equals 1 over 10. That means, well, you got to talk to 10 people. But the sales equation has many more, components, many more variables, many more exponents, even many more constants.
Yeah.
I mean, so first of all, the number of people you talk to, you can vary that different ways. Staying longer hours, catching more ups. That's the work. That's the way if somebody's just going to plod through, but at least they're working more. But another way is to change that coefficient so that instead of 1 out of 10, maybe you do 1 out of 9. You do 1 out of 8. Sharpen your tools. You find better ways to hit it. Then another thing is to bring in more people per hour. You start doing things which attracts appointments directly to you, so you don't have to
Hmm.
worry about foot traffic. And so, it's a numbers game, can mean more than one thing.
No, it's good or bad. It's good or bad. It's a numbers one way or the other, and I started in St. Louis. It used to be taboo to give any information over the phone. If a
Oh,
sale, and we used to run a little ad in the newspaper this big, $1,000 down on an Accord, you got a $199 a month payment or $159 a month on a Civic. Okay, that was the lease deal, right, for 24 months. Well, we would get 35 to 45 phone calls, sales calls a day at the store, but you see 10 people come in. And I'm like, well, somebody's getting lied to somewhere, okay? Because the amount of calls coming in is not equating with nobody telling them anything over the phone to the amount of people walking in the door, right? So I began to explore what I could and couldn't say on the phone and still be able to get an appointment out without pigeonholing me in the way of money, trade value, this kind of thing, and so forth. Had I had Advanta-STAR at that time, not only could I have increased my phone appointment settings, which I took up to about, I was doing about 35-40% appointment ratio for calls versus appointments, which was, it's still damn good. Okay, I mean,
that's phenomenal.
those ratios. Had I had Advanta-STAR to be able to point out, because I would get information from the driver. What are you getting? A van, a car? Are you getting a truck? What do you? I need a van for the wife, and blah blah blah. Well, you're getting that information, right? That's your fact finding and needs assessment and so forth. And then you can point out some of your attributes over the phone, but verbally hearing them versus seeing them is two different animals, right? Because your concept of what I tell you over the phone might be what I want you to have in your mind, and maybe it's not. Maybe you're taking it a completely different way, right? But if I had the ability to run a comparison on Advanta-STAR and be able to send that to the client and point out those things, highlight, check mark some things and so forth, what we talked about, now all of a sudden my appointment ratio setting is probably going to be more like 50% or 60% of the time. Well, that makes all the difference in the world. Okay, that makes all the difference in the world on your conversion rate. So the thing is that Advanta-STAR, I don't care how high tech things get. I don't care what about the algorithms. I don't care about any of the software programs, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't make any difference. Basics are still basics. They're still needed. In order for a customer to feel comfortable in making a decision, you have to make sure that you're solving solutions for them. And one of the ways you do that is by presenting them with hard, cold facts and how this product that you have in this category beats the other things that they're looking at elsewhere. And that's the idea behind it. So, like I said, I wish I would have had it when I was in sales. I ain't gonna lie. I would have used it like crazy.
Yeah. Great point. I mean, if a guy asks you, well, what's the money factor? What's the residual? How much down do I have to put to get to that 199? You go, well, of course you've got the usual. The finance director can go over that specifically with you. It'll depend on a lot of things like, which county you're on, what the sales tax is,
right?
And how many miles you're going to put on it. And then that was it. And that sounded a little bit, but then you go on and go, well, the Honda Accord has standard front and rear disc brakes, and they're vented to help dissipate heat. So, your brakes don't fade, and you have shorter stops. Four-wheel discs also improve directional control in the poor weather, especially with anti-lock brakes, which can make you stop shorter.
Yep.
And then, of course, you go, well, this car stops at 120 feet from 60 miles an hour, according to Motor Trend. And you get their minds not only completely off of what the money factor is, what the residual is, that $199, yeah, that's with 10 miles a month or whatever. They're totally off of that, and they're more interested in the car, and the value in that car is built up. So when they find out that after they talk about the real stuff, and they're going to drive more than 10 miles a week and all this other stuff.
No, I agree. You go to a luxury brand. You go to a luxury brand, and they're doing 5,000, 7,000 miles a year leases, because a lot of those people that buy a $150,000, $200,000 automobile, that's not their daily driver, right? That's their weekend, that's their vacation, that's their fun car.
They tried to put me in a 6,000 mile a year lease on my Alfa Romeo Giulio Quadrifoglio.
There you go.
I said, I'm going to do more than 6,000 miles a year going over 150.
That's right.
So, come on, guys.
But that makes all the difference. And the old sales adage, you know, another point we'll make for another day, but when value exceeds price, friends buy. Well,
Yep.
how do you build value? You're never going to build value in dropping the price, okay? Because
Nope.
anything
Makes
that's
the car
worth
seem
value
worse.
doesn't
Yep.
come at a discount, right?
Nope.
I mean, that's just it. So how are you going to hold more gross? How are you going to hold your value? How are you going to prove that your vehicle is worth more than the competition, you know, and so forth? And Walter, you don't know this, but back when I was in sales, I had subscriptions to every car magazine there was. I used to watch Motor Week on PBS every freaking week, right? I would
I'm on
videotape it.
cassette.
I did my own spreadsheets. So I would do my comparisons. You know, I was doing what Advanta-STAR did on every topic of a car, and I was handwriting them out and putting them onto spreadsheets and having them in a clear sleeve and a binder. And when a customer sat down, I had an entire binder for Accords, one for Civics, you know, and I had each one, and I would set them down, and I would clip the article in full color, put it in the sleeves, then put the comparisons in there. I'd put everything that was in there. And while I was going to get their car appraised in the process, I would leave them with that notebook and the notebook of all of the thank you letters and recommendations I got from customers. And I would have that as for them, instead of them plotting, trying to figure out how they're going to work a price scheme, you know, between the two of them. Oh, we got to go to my aunt's house. We got to leave early, you know, all this kind of shit, right? You would hit them with this stuff and let them sink their teeth into value. Nothing but value. Nothing to do with price whatsoever, right?
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you and it really helps out.